Today is October 17th. My name is Grace from Guelph Guitar Repair. Ian has kindly passed me the mic yet again, and I will begin with a land acknowledgement because it's really important to me. The purpose of a land acknowledgement is to pause for a moment and center the lives and communities that lived on these lands before colonization, because it's at their exclusion and erasure that we've been able to work and live in these areas. We must acknowledge the deep harms colonization imposed on Indigenous people, the persistent racist policies that marginalize minorities, and the institutions like the residential schools in Canada that were designed to fracture families and end entire cultures. I reside on the treaty lands, Treaty 3, and the territory of the Mississaugas of the First Credit. My guest is in Nepean, Ontario, near Ottawa, which is built on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe. The Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation have lived on these lands for millennia and never signed away to the Europeans settling in North America. Unceded territories across Canada and beyond are frequently becoming conflict zones where the interests of corporations compete with the interests of nations who live there. Governments appear to be waking up very slowly to this fact. That's why land-back movements and pipeline interruptions are very common discussions these days. Conflicts arise when the government has approved projects that potentially have dire consequences for communities and the natural world, and groups of Indigenous land and water defenders interrupt the project and demand an end to its progress. I encourage you to keep an ear out for land back and land and water defense in your area. Try to hear the discussion from both sides, and I encourage you to do as the Indigenous communities do. Before you jump to a conclusion about who's right and who's wrong in a conflict, think about what is best for the next 7 generations, because we need to think about how we want to save or protect or defend the world for their use in the future. We're only borrowing this space. It's theirs to inherit. I am honored to introduce you all to Jonathan Beals of Next Gen Guitars. Jonathan is the owner of this fantastic small business, which I couldn't even believe when I found it first a couple of years ago. Jonathan, I don't know if you remember my first emails to you, but I believe that I might have exactly said, "Are you real?" Because
I do remember that.
it is hard to find a supplier in Canada, a reliable business to depend on in the repair world. And there you were. I had not heard of you before, and I've loved to see your business grow and your impact in the community grow. And I'm so honored to talk to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. That I very, very much appreciate it.
Man, but you didn't start this big business right away. It wasn't, how many employees do you have now? 7?
No. 6 in total.
6. Oh, no, not 7, 6.
Yeah. No, I definitely didn't intend on doing this originally when I first started. It was just I was just building cabs as a hobby on the side. I was working a couple other jobs, and I was like, hey, I like building speaker cabinets. I like the design. Started making them at home and trying to sell them on the side for some extra cash. And it just snowballed in a completely different direction.
Wow. What did you do besides building cabs? You said on the side. So what was your main gig at that time?
At that time, I was a registered massage therapist, actually.
Oh, you don't say.
Yeah, I have a very long and varied history of careers. But most of the time, from high school up to now, I've always been involved in a music store in some fashion. Whether doing repairs, or whether just being an employee there, or whether being an assistant manager, or the last place I was hired as basically like a consultant to help them go online and try and modernize their business a little, because they were doing everything by hand on paper. And it's always been a part of my life. I've always been a musician, but I also, like, I tried teaching guitar and doing repairs and things, and I had difficulty making that into a kind of career. And I had other things that I was really interested in, and I was really back then into physical fitness and sports and stuff, and my wife was as well, and we both actually went to school to do massage therapy together.
Whoa, seriously.
Yeah, yeah. Let me tell you, it is interesting being in school with your wife, because when you fight in the morning, you have to sit next to her all day. I don't recommend it. It did turn out really well, but yeah, there's some hard days, that's for sure.
Wow. Talk about a stressful learning environment.
Mostly good, mostly really good. And
Yeah.
a study partner 24/7, which is great.
Okay.
But
Who did better in school?
um that, that's
Mm,
the that's debatable. She
okay.
would probably say me, because I already knew a lot of the things that we learned kind of before we got there. So I was that annoying guy that never studied and did really well on all the tests and things.
Hmm.
And she studied all the time, and I used me as kind of a sounding board to study with. And she did better marks than me. But she just was constantly frustrated because, and even to this day, she's still practicing. I retired 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
She's still practicing, and she still talks to me about cases that she's working on. And she's like, "How do you remember all this stuff?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I like it. It was interesting, so
Yeah.
I retained the information." But
Oh, neat. So while you're being an RMT, you decided that this passion of yours is going to turn into a project, and then it became a little business where you were selling just speaker cab parts at that time, or what?
so
How did
yeah,
that
yeah.
happen?
So I started building speaker cabs on the side, and I put up a website to say, "Hey, I build speaker cabs. Buy my cabs,"
Mm,
like we all do. And I got way more emails from people asking me to sell them parts than I ever had got anyone who was interested in buying a cab.
mm,
So eventually, I just kind of said, "All right, I'll start stocking a handful of parts here in my basement, and we'll go from there." And it went from, I got my first little box of parts, cabinet parts, and I figured, as well, it's the same industry, why not get a box of guitar parts as well? Because I always was frustrated myself trying to do guitar repairs and mods, always having difficulty finding stuff in
yeah.
Canada. So
Yeah.
I figured, why not, right? Who's it gonna hurt? And it went pretty wild from there. It just I couldn't keep enough in stock. I kept running out, kept having to buy more and more and more. It just was taking over more and more of my home,
Yeah.
and my time as well. I had to quit my other jobs and do it full time, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to. And in the early days, it certainly was an interesting challenge in the house, because I don't have a big house. So when people would order Tolex, like it was, I'd get an order for 3 yards of Tolex, and oh god, no. Oh, because I have to go down to the basement, clear out a section on the floor that's 3 feet by 4 feet or whatever, and I'm rolling it out on my hands and knees on the concrete and crawling along the ground trying to cut it straight and stuff.
Yeah.
It was just quite the challenge in the early days. Now I've got a sweet 10 foot by 5 foot table to work on, so I don't have that problem. But yeah, it was definitely interesting in the first while.
I'd love for you to show us that Tolex room. Maybe we could go for a tour a little bit later.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I remember because I was lucky enough to be able to visit you pre-pandemic and come and pick up an
Yes.
order one time.
Yes.
And seeing the Tolex room was so exciting. I did not know there were so many different prints. So
Oh, and there's so many more than what we have too. You could never have enough in this business, as I'm sure Dan could also say.
yeah, yeah, it seems like. So how was your relationship with your suppliers at that time?
Terrible, absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. When you're a small business, no one cares about you. You're constantly begging for more. You're constantly begging for a better discount, because I can only buy 10, and a large company can buy 1,000, which means I'm paying 4 times as much as they are, but I am expected to sell it at the same price.
Mhm,
How do you grow a business when your profit margin is so small compared to everybody else? And
mhm.
I hate to be that, the squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of person, but it really is the case in business. Like if you beg your supplier enough, they may give you a slightly better discount or whatever, and then maybe within a year you're up to the numbers where you've earned that discount, kind of thing. um, but yeah, it was really hard early on, because you'd call companies and they wouldn't call you back. You'd email them and they wouldn't email you back. They don't even give you the time of day if you're not coming to them with a $10,000 purchase order.
Mhm.
So it's pretty rough go. It's pretty hard to get started.
But your business has been the opposite of that. Dealing with you guys has always been like immediate responses from you. If I have a question about what you have in stock, I've got an answer by the end of the day at the latest. So how do you build a business that's the opposite of the businesses you buy from?
By experiencing the worst of it and desiring something better for everyone. That's
Mhm.
really what it is. The every difficult thing that I run into, I think to myself, like, there's got to be another way. I wish it wasn't so hard for smaller businesses to try and grow. And I got to admit though, sometimes I try and take a different route, and then we're losing a ton of money, and I realize, oh, you have to do this to thrive as a business and continue to be profitable. But for the most part, I try as much as I can to give everyone the time of day, whether they're buying a 10-cent part or spending $10,000 a year with us. It I don't see like it. You guys are paying my salary. You're paying the salaries of all my staff. Like, we're trusting in you to support us, and you're putting a lot of trust in us. Like, you trust us not only to give you the part you order, but to do it in a reasonable amount of time, to care about you. Like, we get a lot of really, really great support from all the customers we have in Canada, whether it's businesses or just public people. And like, I feel like that trust is earned, I guess, but it's also something I have a responsibility to maintain it. Like, I care about that. I think it's important. You know,
Mhm.
this isn't. I'm not a lone man climbing up the mountain by myself. I have a whole army of Canadian small businesses and people pushing me up the hill. So like, I gotta give the credit where credit's due, and I can't forget that. So.
And you haven't. You did something in the beginning of your business that your accountant said, don't do that. But
Oh
that was to help the small
yeah.
business person. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, the wholesale pricing is a constant point of butting heads with my accountant. Yeah, he's always telling me to either cancel the wholesale program or cut the discounts in half or something, because in his mind we'd be 5 times the size we are now if we weren't discounting, and that's probably very well true, because a business grows off of its profits, and if we're
Mhm.
cutting out of our profits to give discounts to people, then that it limits the amount or the speed that you can grow. But we're not. It's not threatening our business. We're not going out of business. We're just not the march of dimes that we could be, I guess, if we had everything, if we just kept all the profits to ourselves. But like, I mean, it's kind of like the whole everybody's pushing me up the hill thing. I feel like this is something I feel like we're all kind of doing together, and if I can. It's hard to run a small business. It really is. I've worked with small business owners most of my life. I've always been that guy working in a small music store or something. And it's not, most of these people are not greedy people making a bunch of buck, and going home to their house with 5 cars. They're mostly just trying to take care of their family and have a living, doing something they enjoy. And like, if I can put a couple more bucks into those people's pockets at the end of the day, I don't know, like, it's not hurting me. I mean, I'm not rich or anything, but I'm making a living. I think it's all right. So, yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, I definitely appreciate it. So when did you move from the basement where you had to clear out space to cut your Tolex
Hmm.
to your first location? Are you still in your first location?
We are, yes, yes.
Yeah.
A 5-year lease. It's up next February. So it was in 2017,
Mhm.
February 2017. Yeah, my son was born in September 2016,
Mhm.
and at that point, the business had grown from what it started as very much nothing to it had taken over most of the basement. There were 2 full bedrooms filled with shelves and parts and things, and there
Mhm.
was random boxes strewn throughout the house, in the kitchen, in the living room. And my wife was and the kid came, and my wife's like, okay, you got to move out, you're done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. So I found the warehouse space we're in now, and moved in the February of the next year.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah,
That's quick turnaround time. Did you say
it
September
is.
until February?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The plan wasn't really to move until closer to 2018. Really was the earliest I was thinking. Well,
Mhm.
the plan at least, but it kind of, yeah, the kid came and it kind of had to be done. So
Yeah. And at that time, how many employees were you? Was it just you?
it was me, and I had Calvin McCormick. Actually, I don't know if you guys know him. He was working part-time for me at the time. Calvin's got a really cool story too. He's not a luth, so I'm not sure it directly applies, but he was buying parts from me like the day I put the website up to sell parts. He bought
Yeah.
some parts off me, and I delivered them to his house just down the road from where we are now. At the
Mhm.
time, he was renting a little one-bedroom shop doing amp repairs, and now he is like a pretty key guy at High Watt.
Sorry, what's high watt?
It's a big amp company. Yeah,
Yeah, eh?
yeah. So like, he's, and I remember walking into his house in his tiny little shop, and he's tinkering with amps, and now he's a pretty big wig guy. It's very, very cool to see people, to meet people
It's
like
actually
yourself.
one of his amps right here.
That whole, there you go.
Oh, neat.
That's a McCormick
McCormick.
analog official. Yeah.
Oh,
This is
wow.
basically an 18-watt Marshall clone that he built for me
Yeah.
at my request.
Oh,
And
thanks, Mike.
guaranteed it's
Yeah, no problem.
fantastic.
Oh, that is really cool.
Yeah. So it's very cool for me to see, I meet a guy like Calvin, who's just a guy working in his little shop doing stuff. And he
Yeah.
just, to see him snowball is super cool to watch.
Yeah, and he's not the only little guy in a little shop. Like you help out a lot of little businesses. So what would you say, what are the industries that you supply for? What kind of builders and repairers come to you for stuff? Do you know?
Well, I mean, primarily it's guitar and amplifier.
Yeah.
Although we recently added a bunch of pedal parts and pickup winding parts as well. So it's kind of, we've spread ourselves on a little bit in every direction,
Yeah.
because that's kind of where people have driven it. In hindsight, it probably would have been better business sense to do one thing really well and then expand. But you know, it's easy
Here
to
we
look
are.
back and think, yeah. But yeah, no, we serve a lot of industries, and we're always trying. I'm always trying all the time to curate a catalog that makes everybody happy, and it really is driven by customers, by people like yourself, and repair shops and things like that. People, I get enough people saying like, "Hey, I'm always having to do this repair, and I can never find this part. Can you just
Mm.
stock them, please?" And I go, "Absolutely." I don't do that repair all the time, so I didn't know that.
Yeah.
and,
Wow.
and and so that's kind of how the catalog grows mostly.
Then you're sure to sell the parts that the people are asking for, eh?
Well, kind of, yeah, but it's also, it goes back again to like, that's kind of the point of the business, is helping small businesses out. And I mean, if you're running a repair shop and you're constantly having to order stuff that'll cost you a fortune in shipping or take forever to
Mhm.
get to you, it's not helping you. So if I can bring it in and carry it, and even if I have to, sometimes I have to take a bit of a hit, because sometimes, depending on what it is, I might have to buy a lot of them to get them in, and it might
Right.
take a while for us to kind of make that money back. But like, to me, that's an investment in you, right? Because you're trusting me to supply you, and I'm trusting in you guys as well to support us to be able to keep supplying stuff like that. So
Right. That makes total sense. So when that relationship is made, when I know I can get the part from you, you buy tons of it, then you've proven to me that you want my business and I'm going to buy that part from you. So it is a pretty sure bet then for you.
I hope so.
Can't
Sometimes
can
it
be.
doesn't work out, but most of the time it's a pretty sure bet. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. I love it. I love it. But we've all just been through a pandemic. I don't know if you know about that. The pandemic. Has
Yeah.
it? Did you know?
No, I didn't know. Is it
Did it do
unprecedented?
anything to your business?
So it did a couple things. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're pretty. Oh, sorry about that. Anyway, we're pretty fortunate in that we're primarily a commercial distributor. We have a warehouse. We ship across Canada and outside of Canada as well. So the majority of our business, pretty much all of it, is not really done in person. So the immediate effect of the lockdowns had no impact on us. We weren't locked down. We could continue to operate. So we're very fortunate in that regard. Some of the challenges, certainly early on, were very interesting because the first lockdown hit, and my employees at the time didn't want to come to work because they were commuting by bus or O train or something like that from across the city. And it was a risk. In early pandemic, it was very much everybody stay in your homes, don't go out unless it's emergency. Excuse me. And so, but which I thought, like, okay, whatever. Why don't you guys take a few weeks off while this blows over, and I'll just kind of hold down the fort. But little did I know, apparently, when a pandemic starts, everyone on the planet gets their wallet out and starts ordering things online. And our sales doubled and or tripled in some categories. So it went from, I had 1.5 employees at the time to I was working 12-hour days. I'd come from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., go home, put the kids to bed, come back to work for 2-3 more hours, just trying to keep up with getting the orders out the door. And it was tough. And then trying to hire somebody at the time, because we're overwhelmed with orders. I need more people, and I would interview people and offer them a job pretty quick, and then I'd get a call back saying, I don't make much more working for you 40 hours a week than I will just sitting at home collecting CERB. So I'll just stay at home and collect CERB. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's the way I want to go. But yeah,
just for clarification, the CERB is the Canadian Emergency Relief Benefit that the Canadian government gave everybody to stay home.
Yeah. Everybody, if you couldn't work or chose to stay home instead of going to work, you got to collect CERB, which was the equivalent of more or less a full-time minimum wage salary. It was a little bit less than that, I think, but it was pretty close. So it was hard to get somebody in. But eventually I managed to get some good guys in, and a really good crew of people that not only that I get along with, but I'm sure anyone else who's a small business owner relates to this. It's often difficult to find good help, and it's often difficult to find people who, for lack of a better word, care. A lot of people are willing to work and get paid, but very few people actually care about their job or the business or anything like that. And I'm really, really lucky that, at least from what I can tell, we all get along really well. There's a great culture of people here, and the people who work here seem to actually genuinely care about the business. Like, I'm so grateful, because I've known a lot of small business owners that just struggle to find one employee that they can rely on. And I've got so many guys that are here that seem to really care about the business, and they care, like, we care about each other. It's a really cool little culture we've got here. And I'm really, really thankful that I've been that lucky.
Dude, that is amazing. So not only have you taken care of the small businesses during the pandemic, you worked your ass off to employ extras to help you out. And you've got a great crew that you take care of. They're well employed. And obviously it must be a cool working environment because they all care. You don't care if you don't like the people you work for.
That's true, probably, yeah.
So you've made an awesome team. And then at the same time during the pandemic, you were also you also helped out your community. Do you remember you were doing a fundraiser? Did you?
Yes, early on.
How'd you do that?
Well, I mean, our sales almost tripled in the first couple months of the pandemic.
I would love to know the mechanics of how do you make that happen? So first describe what you did and tell us, like, how can small businesses like our businesses, like my business, help other groups of people? How do we do that?
Oh gosh, you're asking the wrong guy. I don't know. I legitimately just started seeing all the money rolling in, and knowing I've always been a kind of community driven person. I feel guilty when I'm succeeding where I know others are struggling. And so I just saw all the money rolling in, and I thought, we should give back in some way. There's a lot of people struggling right now. It'd be great if we did something to give back. And I just set up donation pages on our website where people could donate money. Like I would pick a cause. Like, I think the first one we did was the food banks or
You
something
did the
like
food
that.
bank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just picked a cause that I thought I didn't, I got to admit, I didn't have a ton of time to do research. So I did brief research to try and pick something that I knew would help a lot of people with the money that was sent. And the food bank seemed like a really good one. And so we just started collecting donations for the food bank. And
Mhm.
at the end of the month, I took all of the money we collected, because it's all automatically tracked in the computer, right?
Mhm.
And I took all the money we collected and a percentage of our sales as well,
Mhm.
and donated that to the food bank.
So was it like a click on our website and
Yeah, it was sort of like,
did a donation? How did that work?
oh, okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
it was 5% of all of our sales
Yeah.
automatically. I would just calculate that off the top and
Okay.
send that. And
Yeah.
then it was also, we had just a product page up that people could add to their cart
Oh,
and
I love that.
pick their donation amount. And then I could, because it was a product, I could easily do the accounting that would separate that out from our actual sales and keep it as donations. So it really and we raised it. I don't remember now. It's been over a year. But and we did it 3 times, and I think we raised a total of somewhere near 10 grand for
Wow.
different causes. So it was pretty
Wow.
cool. It was really cool to see people, because I'm thinking to myself, so many people are struggling right now, but our sales are going up, and I'm like, well, maybe most of the people who are spending money like crazy are people who are off, but who have money to spend. So maybe they'll be willing to help out too. And
Mhm.
it's really cool to see, like, so, most people were just happy, we're just buying, and 5% was going automatically, but there were some people that were putting in $100 donations and $50 donations, and it was really cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. So you're thinking about your community as well. I want to know about, okay, look, price is an issue. When I'm going to buy parts, price is an issue. I want good quality. I want a good price. And for me, the best way to hit the right price is to avoid shipping over the border. So if I can get the stuff from you, then that's a huge savings.
Mhm.
But how about in your mind, you're the business owner and you're trying to get the parts in that are going to turn you some profit and that are going to be good looking, like good looking numbers in my cart.
Mhm.
How do you balance that with, we know that globally employment is not valued at the same number, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So how do you do that? How do you make ethical environmental decisions for where you get your parts from?
I will say it's really hard,
Yeah.
because it's a very, very deep rabbit hole, and no matter what direction you go, no matter what you do as a person in the Western world, somebody somewhere is getting exploited for what you're doing. It's just it's a sad but true reality.
Yeah.
Um, and so you try as best you can to obviously choose sources where the people generating the stuff are a little better compensated, and or you choose products that are more ethically harvested. Let's say, like if it's an organic product like bone or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, that they're not just like murdering animals left and right just so that luthiers can have good quality bone.
Mhm.
Uh, um, you can get it from places like that, or you can get it from places that it's harvested from animals that are already being slaughtered for meat production or something like that.
Mhm.
And so you try and pick sources that lean more towards obviously the one direction versus the other.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, in a perfect world, uh, everything would be made in Canada or made in the US or something like that. I would love that. I kind of, since the very beginning, I always kind of dream like it would be super cool if all these parts were made right here.
Yeah.
But it's you could pay $6 for a neck plate or $20 for a neck plate, and everybody's going to pick $6. It's a hard reality sometimes,
Yeah.
but yeah.
So it's not easy for you either.
No, no. And I mean, as far as setting prices goes, obviously I try and get it for as cheap as, and it's just business reality. I try and get it for as cheap as possible, but at
Mhm.
a quality that is good enough, or
Mhm.
good, or that is still reasonably good, um, so that we can mark it up enough that we can make a profit and survive and thrive.
Mhm.
But also so that there's room for us to be able to offer a discount, sell it at retail at a reasonable price, but also discount it to luthiers and repair shops and things, uh, so that everybody can, we can all benefit from it.
Mhm. Mhm.
But that sometimes that doesn't work out. Sometimes I'll buy 1,000 of something from a factory and it'll come here and we end up having to throw out 500 of them because they're just garbage.
Yeah.
And again, because we're a small business, they didn't want to make the sale to us in the first place because it was so small, and we're stuck with these parts. They don't want to take them back. So sometimes they just end up in the garbage, or other times we spend hours trying to sort through the bad stuff to toss it so that we can keep only the good stuff on the shelf to ship.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it doesn't always work out. Most of the time, I think as I continue doing this, I get better and better at sourcing quality products without the running into this kind of problem. But
Mhm. Hey, we talked in our pre-chat about the challenge of buying parts when you're going up against the big companies, and it was just a concept I hadn't actually considered. Can you describe that again? Did I give you enough to go off of right there?
yes, yeah, there's a couple challenges. I mean, it's the same, like I mentioned earlier. Big manufacturers, big factories, big companies, they don't want to deal with the fewer customers you have, the fewer large customers you have, the better when you're that kind of company. If you're
Mhm.
just a factory churning out, millions of $1 parts, then you don't want to sell 1,000 of them to, 1,000 businesses. You want to sell 500,000 of them to a couple of businesses.
Mhm.
It's just the reality of the ease of operating that kind of factory, because the less customers you're having to deal with from their perspective, the greater benefit for them, because it's less work to do customer service. It's less quality control efforts and less of everything, right?
Hmm.
It's just easier from a factory perspective. When you're when you're a company like us and you're trying to place much smaller orders, not only do you get a much worse price than what other larger companies are going to get, because if I'm buying 100 and some larger company in the States is buying 100,000,
Mhm.
naturally they're going to get a much better price. And they can, and the retail price is the same, but the margins are, there's a big difference in the end. So it's challenging to grow and profit when you're competing for price, but it's also challenging because often, or certainly now, I don't think so before, but certainly now with the pandemic, there are a lot of factories that are just pushing small business orders aside.
Hmm.
I'll place, I have a great example. We started adding a new category of parts this past year, and I put an order in with a factory for about 10 grand in February, and we just got the stuff in a couple weeks ago. Like it was an incredibly long wait time, and I was constantly contacting them saying, like, what's going on? And there are major supply chain issues in terms of raw material shortages and delays at factories and things like that. But he came right out and told me, he's like, well, I hate to tell you, but your order is only $10,000. um, we have orders from other companies for $500,000. If those show up and yours is being worked on, yours will get put aside so we can cover them, because they're the customers that are going to keep us going. We don't know if you're going to be around in 5-10 years. These people have been around 57 years, whatever. They're going to keep spending $500,000 and you are what you are. And it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But you do what you can, you know
Yeah. That really sheds such light on it. I hadn't thought of how the supply chain works past what I need.
Yeah.
So
I
I,
didn't really too until I got
it's a
into the
much
industry.
bigger picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe on that note, we'll
I should mention,
pause. Yeah.
I do want to
Yeah.
mention, that's
Yeah.
not all suppliers. That's a few sort of factories. for the most part, it's good. There are other supply chain issues, but that's, but that kind of thing does happen on occasion. And anyway, not
Yeah.
everybody, but once in a while.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad to hear that isn't a constant battle then.
No.
Yeah. Maybe I'll just ask you a couple more questions and then you can show us the shop. Show us what you got. Show us what picking an order looks like. Like you don't actually need to take things out. Give us a tour, especially the Tolex room.
Yeah. You want me to do that right now?
I want to ask you just a couple more things to close it off because I want to know about the new big projects you have going on. Like recently I've seen you wiring up patch cords, like custom length patch cord stuff and winding custom pickups for people. So can you talk about those offerings in your business?
Yeah. I mean, I'm, naturally the business started because I'm a tinkerer myself and have done repairs, and I'm always more so before than now because of time, but I always mess with my gear, and I was into it. And Brett actually,
Hey, Brett.
Yeah, Brett got into winding pickups, and he the bug bit him, and he was just. I get really excited when other people get excited about things.
Yeah.
And because he was always talking about it, I was always like, oh, this sounds really cool. And I love it. And I love to understand the science of things when I can. And so his passion kind of rubbed off on me, and I got really deep into it. And so it just kind of became a thing here. We're like, let's start carrying pickup parts. And I'm like, we've had pickup winders for years telling us, hey, you should carry pickup parts. And I never have because it's such a big investment. But like, if we can also rewind pickups and make pickups here, then maybe it'll be worth the investment, because between the sales and us doing the stuff ourselves, it kind of might balance out and cover the cost. And I really enjoy it. So that's a benefit too. It's from a business perspective, it's as simple as just trying to have multiple revenue streams, different ways that you can make money. Obviously. But it's also just I love doing it. I really love doing it. I'm really love pickup designing and understanding the science of it. And Brett's great at working with his hands and putting them together, and he understands it too. And so we bounce ideas off each other all the time, and it's great. And I'd love to get more pickup stuff going. It gets a little bit more and more challenging as the supply chain becomes a problem, because getting those parts in is getting it to be a challenge, and it's hard to sell pickups that you're making when you don't have the parts to make the pickups.
What's the trickiest component to get for the pickups?
It's not so much about trickiest component as it is about the time, from the time I place an order with a factory to the time it actually arrives here. So it used to be, a month or 2 or maybe 3 at the most. And now it can, depending on what it is, take 3, 6, 9 months. In the case of that last order, it was pickup parts, the one from February to October.
Yeah. Was it specifically the magnets, or was it flat work, or was it the wire? What was it?
It was a combination, because it's one company we deal with that does the flat work and covers and base plates for humbuckers and all that kind of stuff. And it was just a big order of a variety of parts, and it just took too long to get here.
Yeah.
And and somebody will say, hey, can you guys make a P90? And I'm like, I know the science behind it, and I can make you one, but I don't have the parts.
Right.
And I mean, I could buy them from like a company from the States or something like that, and make a one-off. That we could certainly do that.
Yeah.
But it's better for us, obviously, but also for our customers, if we can actually get the parts in so that everyone can make P90s in Canada, right?
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Okay, show us the place.
All right. So, welcome to the shop.
Okay. Yes.
This is the Tolex room, where we obviously cut Tolex and grill cloth, and these are all the cool variations of Tolex. We carry 40. There's probably about 60 in total, or 8, probably maybe closer to 80 actually. But a lot of unique colors that we probably wouldn't sell enough of if we actually stocked them.
You got a favorite right now in the showroom?
My favorite has always been, and I don't think it'll come out in the camera, unfortunately. Maybe it will. this stuff here. It's called Taurus wine.
Yeah.
It's like a mauve kind of maroonish color, but it's almost like a little bit blotchy and patterned.
Yeah.
It looks super cool to me, at least, especially if you combine it with a vanilla color or tweed. I think they really go well together.
Oh, interesting.
That's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen one of your clients putting the Tolex on the top of maybe a telly. Was it a telly?
Yes. We had one client who is a we got a lot of people, but we have one who Tolex's pedals actually, and he puts tweed on pedals.
Whoa.
True North pedals, and he's a good guy to look at if you're interested. Check him out right now, especially because he's doing a line of pink Tolex pedals for to support a friend of his who is dealing with cancer treatments and things like that.
Right.
But yeah, True North pedals. He Tolex pedals. But we've had customers buy like snakeskin Tolex and do their guitars bound with snakeskin Tolex on top, and it's the coolest looking thing ever. I would never have thought to do that, but it looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Show us your warehouse.
All right. Okay.
Oh, does anyone else have any questions about the Tolex space? Just wait before you go.
Sure.
Yeah. Anybody want to see any custom colors there, guys? Oh, I love it. I'm surprised you don't have them organized like in the rainbow. I guess that's okay.
There is a system of organization here.
Yeah.
It probably doesn't look like it, but they are actually organized in a very particular way for us to very quickly grab and cut.
By texture? Do you have them organized by texture?
Yeah, by texture and by color.
All right.
Anyway, all right.
All right, here we go.
Moving on, I guess. It's a pretty, your first warehouse is always a budget warehouse, so there's not a lot of stuff going on. But yes, my desk, I don't have an office. I don't segregate myself from the rest of the people.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Fret wire, which we're selling a lot of these days since we started selling it by the pound. So I got to start talking more of that.
Mm-hmm.
But
are you selling it like coiled?
Yeah. People are buying it coiled by the pound now, which is pretty cool.
Awesome.
We used to cut it into sets. We also sell it in straight pieces.
Yeah.
It's pretty popular all three ways, depending on who's buying.
Mm-hmm.
Transformers and more transformers and pedal enclosures. There's a lot of amp parts and obviously a lot of reverb tanks. These are all different kinds of reverb tanks. Down here, tons and tons of guitar parts of various kinds, knobs and everything else you can think of. There's Brett and Scott at the back table doing some picking.
Hey, Brett.
We're cleaning.
Oh, you guys are cleaning.
Yeah.
Oh, that's another thing I forgot to mention. Cleaning parts. Because a lot of
take the oils off.
Yeah, because a lot of parts when they arrive from the factory, they can have like a filmy, gross residue on them, and it's just a sort of byproduct of the plating process, and it helps to preserve them as well when they're shipping from overseas. And so one of the things our guys do when it arrives is they clean all the parts.
Is it extensively dirty, or is it just a little bit of a smear on it?
I wouldn't call it extensively dirty, but it's very difficult to remove.
Are they using a naphtha or a fluid on it too?
You want to know the secret? Actually?
Yeah, I do. I'm sorry. I do want to know about the goo.
Many things.
Yeah.
And this actually has turned out to be the absolute best.
This is it comes off.
Look.
Now
I mean, it cleans the seals up. So why wouldn't it work well on parts too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty amazing. Yeah, we tried a lot of different things, and that just turned out to be the best.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then, tons of pickguard material, lots of Godot parts and other random things. I got to say, keeping this place organized gets more and more difficult all the time because the stock keeps expanding. And so, you make an area for a certain type of part and then it gets full, but then you keep adding more from that company or something. And you're having to constantly reorganize the warehouse. But yeah,
Wow. You know what? Seeing the fret wire makes me want to do a poll. Can you guys, I don't know if you want to comment or if you want to unmute, but I'd really be curious to know who prefers to buy the pre-cut versus the by the pound and it's, come in a bit of a coil or straight. Anybody want to comment on what their favorite is?
Never pre-cut.
Never pre-cut.
I almost always buy it in the coil, because if I buy it straight and I bend it myself, there's always a little like inch of it that doesn't get bent, and I gotta throw that away, and it makes me angry.
Yeah.
I get it straight because it's easier to store in the shop.
Yeah, I do.
Just put it in tubes in a rack,
Yeah.
I buy it both coiled and straight, but I always buy it by the pound.
And how many pounds do you need for a guitar, or how many pounds do you buy at a time, Doug?
Typical guitar will only use about 5 feet of fret wire.
Yeah.
So
Pound is, depending on what it is, it could be up to 60 feet or 70 feet.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
What radius is the coiled wire radius to?
It comes from the factory. Most of them, I'm pretty sure, are 10-inch radius. Yeah, and then people usually either rebend it themselves or, obviously this is a debate among luthiers, but there are a lot of luthiers that like it to be over radiused slightly when they press it in. I haven't done enough fret jobs myself to have a preference either way, but I will say that I love Evo fret wire on acoustics and stainless on my electrics. That's just me.
All right. Well, next time you need a refret, do it yourself.
I've got the frets at least.
Yeah, you know where to get them.
Yeah.
All right, Jonathan, that ends all the questions I had for you. I really appreciate your time, and I would love to open it up to anybody else to harass you and pick on you. If anybody has any questions or comments for Jonathan.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. Danny.
Come on, Evan. Evan's got something. Here we go.
Just to comment on how you're building your business model about what does your customer need, and then you're going to stock that. So you're basically building a relationship for the future with your customer. Like there's a large parts supply company that I will not name in the States that has done the opposite recently, where they decided to only stock to order, which left them with no stock forever. And all of us have basically switched our allegiance. So I think you're on the right track there.
Wow, I didn't know that. Thank you, I guess.
Sure. So I wish I lived there for many reasons. And that serve thing sounded awesome. Well,
yeah, Serb and Next Gen, the two best things about Canada right now.
Yeah, because I blew my stimulus checks on just back orders from all parts.
I thought they were going to remain nameless.
Yeah, what happened there?
Well,
I have a question. Go ahead.
I was just going to say they should be forced to change the name from all parts to something more representative. But go ahead. It was going to be a dumb joke, so I'm sorry for breaking it, breaking your stride.
All parts.
My question would be, not being familiar with your business being south of the border here, or your border, how much? I didn't catch I didn't hear it in the beginning. How long have you been around? How long have you been in business?
The parts portion, more or less the beginning of 2015. So like 5 years almost.
Oh, okay. So you mentioned something about you're doing wholesale accounts.
Yes. Yeah. Discounts for
Repair shops and the like, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, I'm presuming most of your business is web-based, I would think.
Yeah, essentially all of it. Yeah.
Right. So just out of curiosity, what percentage would you say of your business is to the wholesale crew of independent luthiers, small shops?
Yeah.
Et cetera,
It's about,
et cetera? How much is it are people who are paying retail for the weekend warrior who's going to, just replace their switch cap because they broke it.
Yeah, it's about 75% retail and 25% wholesale.
Okay.
What's the duty situation like? Do Americans have to pay duty?
I don't know because I'm not in America. I believe so. I do, but I couldn't tell you for sure. I know a lot about the Canadian industry. That's kind of where I've focused all my expertise.
Yeah.
We do have some US customers because we ship stuff to them every week, but I don't know the details of whether there's duty when it arrives and all that kind of stuff. I assume there is, and I warn people that there is. There might be, but I don't know for sure.
Okay.
Mhm.
Danny, ask a question.
Why are you picking on Danny? Danny's working.
Because he's got good questions.
I guess one question I would have is like, do you just ask nicely, like American companies where they get their parts made? Like, how do you get the leads on the factories?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
That's a good question. That's a real skill to develop, I guess, is having to find these places. Some of it is kind of hearing through the grapevine, because if you spend enough time on forums, there's always some guy who claims to have the inside track who's like, oh, I know, all of these parts that All Parts has are actually from this factory. And then I go, oh, and I take notes. And I see enough of those kinds of conversations that I go off of that. Sometimes they're bogus, and sometimes they actually are legitimate. Other ways too is obviously things like NAMM shows and all that kind of stuff. There's manufacturers galore at all of these kinds of shows, these big music trade shows, and they want to sell parts, and they will be happy to give you all of their information to try and get you to buy a lot of their parts. And a lot of the times they'll ignore you if your purchase order is too small. But at the very least, I have a growing catalog of factories and manufacturers that are all that I can look at down the road. And sometimes it's also just sometimes you just look at the part. I remember, a great story actually. One of our employees, Robbie, when he started working here, lost his mind when he saw Switchcraft jacks, and he couldn't believe how cheap they are, because he had bought from a retail store, an Ernie Ball professional quality factory fresh input jack for your guitar, and he opened up, and it's $20 or something like that, and you open it up and it's just a Switchcraft number 11 jack. And you can, if you dig around enough, you find out all like sometimes it's written right on the product, like in that case, where you don't have to get a Fender input jack or a Fender 5-way switch or a Gibson this or that, because you can find the factory that made it for them and then just buy it straight from the factory. But oftentimes that comes with really high minimums, right?
And that's hard for the small businessman.
It's interesting.
Yeah. You know what, Ian, you were right to pick on Danny. Danny, that was a great question.
That was a good question.
Welcome.
So how do you actually like the job part of this 4 or 5 years into it? Are you happy doing this kind of detective work and logistics work?
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
I really like it, because sometimes it's like a mystery that needs to be solved. And I like the challenge of sort of figuring it out. Sometimes it's a math thing that needs to be solved, how to make it work financially. If it's an investment that a lot of people want us to make, and it's maybe just a pretty close to borderline risky. I'm getting a lot of echo there. Okay.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And I do kind of enjoy the thought process of it, and I love learning about it too. I mean, before I started, I'm not a luthier. I'm the first to admit that. I don't build amps. I don't build pedals. I'm not a professional, at any of these things. I've always just been a hobbyist. And I mean, I worked in some guitar stores doing minor repairs, but I've never had like a real shop and anything like that. And so being in this industry, I've learned a ton, and I continue to learn a ton all the time because I'm always talking to and hearing from people who do this for a living. And they will, and it's fun sometimes hearing the debates. Some guys are like, it has to be this way, and other people are like, no, you could do it this way and it's good enough. But I enjoy learning about it. And it seems like every new direction we go, or every new part we bring in, I'm learning more, because sometimes I get the part and I'm like, what the hell is this thing? And then I have to take the time. And then I have to take the time to learn what it is, what it's for, and how it's used best in certain circumstances, and how it can be troubleshooted if something goes wrong. Because one of the things I really enjoy about the business, and any business owner would say I waste my time probably, but I spend most days spending a long time researching answers for people who email me asking questions. And I don't know, like, it's not like an ego thing. Like, I don't want people to think I know a lot, because I don't, and I'm perfectly happy to tell everyone that I don't. But not only is it, oftentimes it's a question that interests me, I want to know the answer. And I mean, if I can take the time to find the answer and share it with them, I've learned something. That's cool. And hopefully they benefit from the answer too. And
That's cool.
And I think a skill maybe that I've developed over the years is knowing how to find good quality information quickly, because you can find a lot of bad answers really easily online.
Especially guitars.
Yeah, especially with guitars. So knowing how to quickly sort of sort through the data and find the good answer, the better quality answer, is something I think that I've gotten good at. But
are you doing anything with tooling, or is it just parts at this point?
Just parts. I mean, we have an arbor press, we have a drill press, we have a couple little tools, but mostly for shaping pickup parts and doing work on pickups.
You're not going to sell luthier tools, just parts.
Oh, that's a big difficult thing, actually. There are a few really good brands of luthier tools out there. Certainly some really good Japanese ones that a lot of people know, and they won't sell to us because they have exclusive distribution deals for North America through other companies. That's actually another, going back to that question of difficulty with doing it as a small business, or just being a new company doing this. A lot of brands, just traditional distribution is to find a distributor or a select couple of distributors and just deal with them. And so like I looked into trying to get tools and from good reputable tool companies, and they would just say, no, we sell to these companies and that's it. We won't sell to you, because they have contracts or something like that. And I understand that's business. I wish I could carry tools. And I mean, I could certainly go to China and get 1,000 nut files and whatever, but I'd rather have some, not to knock China, because they can produce very good quality stuff, but I'd rather have a reputable brand of tools if I was going to get something in, because tools, you want a good nut file. You want a good fret file. You want something that's going to last a few jobs on stainless steel. You don't want to have to buy a new tool every single time you do the job. So I'd rather have really good quality stuff in than cheap stuff.
And the danger is that your name is then attached to whatever you sell from your location. So even if the quality is the fault of the manufacturer, it still came through you, and
yeah,
it's a thing, eh?
Yeah. And I mean, and you know what, this is just true too. It's a small business. The reality is, if people don't know who you are, they'll order from you, maybe give you a chance. Yeah. And if they didn't have a great experience the first time, they won't look at you again. Or even looking for parts. So let's say it's a repair shop looking for a couple parts to do a guitar repair, and they find some of what they need, but there's a couple things we don't have. Then they go, well, their selection sucks. And then they move on to the next place and they totally forget about us. So there's some challenges to overcome when you're a small business. So we, constantly trying to grow our inventory so that we don't run into that kind of problem. But it's always going to happen, because as I'm sure all of you are well aware, no matter how many parts you have, it's never enough. There's always something you don't have, or some tool you don't have that you need, or something. And that's especially true for us, just like a guitar ferrule, let's say, for the back of a guitar for a string through. There's 30 or 40 different versions of those with different diameters and different shapes and different types of metal being used and different types of plating. And everybody wants the one or the dozen that you don't have, you know. It's a very, very, very difficult crowd to please everybody.
Is there anything that you'd like this group of luthiers to know about for ordering from any supplier in the future? Anything we're missing in our relationship with our suppliers that would be beneficial to both parties?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
That's a hard question to answer without just sounding like a jerk. I think, well, first off, that everyone's human, that you are human, and in the same way that you, as good as you are at your job, can make a mistake once in a while. The place you're buying from, it's humans taking the stuff and putting it in the box and counting it, checking it off, and taping it shut, putting the shipping label on, sending it out. As much as all that stuff can be automated, there's always a human component that something can go wrong. So when a mistake is made, no one's out to get you. You know, the company isn't trying to screw you over or make your job hard. It's an honest mistake of people who don't want to make mistakes, because that's terrible for business, you know, and nobody likes to do that. You want to get it right every single time. And even if you get it right 99.9% of the time, you know, it's always some guy who needed it by Friday and the wrong part came, and, you know, they get very, very, very upset. And I understand why they're upset, but just try and not be too angry, because, you know, no one needs to get yelled at because you got a stereo jack instead of a mono jack or something like that. You know, it's extremely rare these kinds of things happen. And when they do, like if you're dealing with a company that cares about you, and hopefully you are, they will make it right as fast as they can, because they don't want it to be wrong. They want to help you. They want to help your business. They want to help you as a customer. So that's one, I guess, just be nice. And then the other, and this is just a business suggestion that people can take it or leave it. Never make promises that require things that are out of your control to go.
Yeah.
You know, I can't tell you how many times I'll get a call on like a Thursday, and it'll be somebody in a repair shop or something that'll say, "Hey, I need this part," and it's like a Thursday afternoon, you know, and they'll say, "Hey, I need this part. I need it tomorrow because I promised this guy I would have this repair done by Saturday." And I mean, I understand why you want to make those kind of promises, but that's bad for everybody. It's bad for you. It's bad for your business. It's bad for your stress levels, and it's bad for the supplier you're dealing with. You know, it's there's too many things about that are out of your control. If you don't have the parts in your shop, in your hand, to be able to make that promise happen, if you need to order it from somewhere, you need to rely on the supplier getting it out in time, getting it to the hands of the shipper in time. The shipper has to deliver it on time. These are all things that are well out of your control. You know, you can't, if you don't control those things, then you shouldn't promise that they're going to be done. At the best, I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying, "I'll do my best. I think I could probably get the part by Friday, but I can't guarantee it." You know, that's the best, I think, in my opinion, the best thing you can say, because there will be times something will go wrong, and it's not your fault, and it's not even the supplier's fault. It's something has happened that delayed it for some reason, whether it's in shipping or whether it's just, you know, you call the supplier on 2:00 in the afternoon on a Thursday, and, well, we already have 50 orders on our desk, you know, and there's 50 other customers, by the way, who also want it tomorrow. You know, we can't do that all the time for everybody. It's impossible. And I mean, I like to think that we have a really good turnover time, because we work really hard at doing it as efficiently as we can. But sometimes the requests are just unreal and impossible for us to accomplish, even if we stopped everything and just did this thing for this one guy. And even if everything went right, it might still not make it on time. And, you know, if he promised his customer that, it makes him look bad for not delivering. It makes, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'm wording this well, but don't make promises that you can't keep, or don't make promises that rely on factors outside of your control. I guess
think
that's the best way I can put it.
that is super advice. And yeah, definitely. I can see where the friction would come into the relationship, and it doesn't belong there because there's too many factors that are beyond control.
This is
Yeah.
only fresh on my mind because I got screamed at on the phone a couple weeks ago for this exact thing. Yeah, somebody like I ordered something Friday and needed it by Saturday or something like that. And he's like, I need you to ship it this morning, overnight shipping. And I'm like, that's not a possibility. We can't, like, I don't even, you got to give us a little more notice, man. He's like, well, I promised my guy it would be done tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, I understand that. And I know, and we'll do everything we can to try and get it out as fast as we can. But I mean, I can't guarantee you it'll be there by tomorrow. And then he just started screaming at me. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm just kind of thinking like, I don't mean to be mean, but like you did this to yourself.
Mhm.
If your customer gets upset with you because you couldn't deliver, this is kind of your fault. And I don't.
What do you hang up the phone?
Usually if people raise their voice enough and swear at me or a staff member, I
Mhm.
tell them to hang up and not talk to them.
That was
Well-
awesome, Doug. Just hang up the phone. I like
Honestly, legit, just hang it up.
Yeah. Hey, Dan Earlywine asked if you go to the NAM shows.
We haven't been yet, actually, because something has always come up.
Yeah.
Whether it's a pandemic or a Canada Post strike or some other massive thing that has kind of made me have to work extra hours here at the shop. Also, it's really expensive, man. And we're not the March of Dimes. I don't have the kind of money to pay for a flight to go down there and pay for a place to stay and all that kind of stuff. Like, I gotta pay my mortgage. I gotta pay for all of my kids' school supplies. I'm still there. We're not quite there yet. I'd love to go someday.
Which doesn't mean you don't go to guitar shows. You were at the Sonor Fest. The last year it was available, right?
Yeah. I've tried to go to a few shows here in Canada and within driving distance because my kids are really young and it's a lot of work for my wife because she's in the type of job where she's self-employed, where if she takes time off, she just doesn't get paid.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm making a salary, but it's pretty minimal. But it is what it is. It's part of growing a business, right? Eventually I'll be paying myself much more, but it'll take time to get there. So like, it's money's not, we're not super rich or anything. So I do a lot of virtual NAM stuff, and I've had people who I know personally from this area go to NAM shows, and they kind of go for me. Not that I'm hiring them to do it, but they're going already and they know me, and they just kind of, they do the work, the groundwork for me while they're there, and they bring back business cards and contacts and things like that. So that's usually how that happens.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's clever.
But I would love to go sometime. Absolutely.
I have a question about an inventory question. You had made an allusion earlier that some quote unquote mistakes you made wound up with you in a situation where you had to throw away thousands of parts and that kind of thing. My curiosity is what kind of parts are so shelf life sensitive that they have to be thrown out in that quantity?
It's not so much shelf life as it is quality control. So I can tell you the exact story that I was referring to there. That was bone. It was bone nut blanks. So I had found a company, and their specialty was they do work for like knives and like pistol handles and things like that. And but they work with a lot of bone and at a good price. And at the time, I didn't know. I guess it's in hindsight, it seems pretty obvious, but I didn't know there was different qualities of bone. As a tinkerer, I would buy a bone nut from a guitar supplier, put it in my guitar, and it was always a reasonably good bone. It cut well, it polished well. I never thought as a supplier I had to grade bone before. And so I bought a whole bunch of bone sized as custom nut blanks from this company who's used to making it for knives. And we got it. And I remember you hold it up to the light and one's like almost transparent. Like if you cut it, it just turns to dust. You can't use that on a nut. And so we had to kind of sort through and grade the bone that we were getting from this company. And it turned out that, most of it I'm sure may have been suitable for something, but a lot of it ended. It's certainly not good enough for a saddle or a nut in a guitar where you want something with density where the vibrations are going to transfer properly and yeah, so that was that particular situation.
Mm.
Oh, okay.
But other times too, it's it could be something simple like an issue in the factory with the mold, and so the part is shaped just wrong, or an issue with the plating where there's bits of plating that are flaking off because it was poorly cleaned before it was plated or something like that. And that happens when you're using let's say cheaper factories, and you learn pretty quick.
Those manufacturing defects, you're not allowed to charge. You can't charge back to the manufacturer.
It depends on the manufacturer.
Oh, okay.
Some of them will take it, others will just ghost you, and you're stuck with parts.
Right.
So it's kind of the,
Do you have like a garage sale at the end of the year for all that detritus?
Can I swear?
Uh-huh.
We have what we call the shit bin here.
Uh-huh.
It's actually a couple bins now. It's just filled with parts that we can't sell, that we mostly use for our own projects, or we give away to people who walk in that are like, hey, I need a tone pot. And I'm like, do you care if there's a third lug on it? Because you're not going to use it. And they're like, nah. And I'm like, all right, sure. So, yeah, because a lot of there's a certain brand that shall remain nameless that is a more expensive pot brand that everyone in the guitar industry seems to absolutely love. And for whatever reason, they arrive with the highest amount of defects and other issues like lugs being broken off just during shipping. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, we have a lot of those, and people are usually happy to take them, even though they're missing lugs, because they're great for tone pots.
Yeah, I actually have a little place with 2 lug pots that I have.
There you go.
Yeah, from that particular brand, yes.
There's the bag of shame.
There you go. Every shop's got one.
Everybody's shop's got them.
Well, Jonathan, you have been a font of information. It's
hopefully
been
good
fun.
information.
Oh yeah. You expanded my mind on the supply chain and relations, and I think it's really important. And I love how you take care of your people in your community,
Try to. Oh yeah, I think it's important. We're not just lone wolves. You got people around you.
You know what? So often it feels like the guitar world is lone wolves from our little luthalongs and stuff. Ian's trying to make it seem less lonely. So yeah, no, it's great to know that there's good people out there who are helping us do our thing.
Oh, thank you. You guys do awesome stuff. So I'm always jazzed to see stuff luthiers come up with, man. I love. I don't use social media, but I love crawling Instagram and seeing stuff that guys are working on. So some of the repairs are mind-boggling. How you get them looking original, looking at what it looked like before, and some of the guitars and the instruments people create, like with their hands from wood, is mind-blowing. So yeah, I dig it. I love what you guys do.
Thanks.
All right, pass it back to you, Ian.
All right. Well, everybody unmute and say thanks to Jonathan. And boy,
Thank you, John.
if you're looking for
John.
parts, I would look at them, man.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you so much.
Excellent.
And
It's a
everybody,
treat having you in Ottawa, dude.
Hey,
how
go by the
about-
shop again.
Lucky you that he's so close.
Yeah.
have an
yeah.
excellent
And life
remainder
changing.
of your Sunday. Also, I'm thinking about changing the second Luthalong to Fridays. So I'm gonna do a poll on that. But if you guys think about it, if anybody has an issue with that, I don't think anybody does. But anyway, so hey,
on Saturday.
what's that, Danny?
I'll just be lonely on Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can have our own. We can have our own thing.
Yeah,
We'll have
we
our
can-
West Coast.
I'd be a Saturday guy.
It was nice on Saturday.
Yeah, Doug, you vote for Saturday remaining.
Yeah, I
may-
just wasn't here for the last 2 Saturdays, but
Okay.
Saturday will
I
still work.
like Saturday.
We'll see. I'll do a poll, and I don't know. You know, if
Hell,
it
do it
can't,
3
then
times a week.
Maybe we'll
People's
have
fun.
it 3 times a week. I just can't be there on the Saturday ones.
Yeah.
So,
Good work.
anyway, everybody have a good rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you all at the next get together.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice seeing
Thanks, Greg.
everybody.
Thanks,
guys.
thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good day, guys.
You too.
Bye.